Hi, this is Ajay Anand and welcome to science classes from excelup.com. In this lesson, you will learn about the structure of atom. You will learn about subatomic particles, about Thomson's model of atom, Rutherford's model of atom, and Bohr's model of atom. After reading about these models, you will learn about distribution of electrons in discrete orbits, about valency, and about isotopes and isobars. In the previous chapter, you studied that atoms are indivisible. Dalton proposed that atoms cannot be divided, but certain day-to-day experiences and some experiments they show otherwise. So, for example, when you rub a plastic ruler with a cloth, both ruler and cloth become charged, and this can be shown by the fact that when the charged ruler is brought closer to small pieces of paper, those pieces they get attracted towards ruler, and this happens because of electrostatic force, because of the charge on the ruler. So a question comes that where does this charge come from? So these charges come because atom is divisible and it consists of some charged particles. So let us see what are these charged particles. They are electrons, protons and neutrons. Electron was discovered by J.J. Thomson in 1900. Then E. Goldstein, he discovered canal rays in 1886, that is much before the discovery of electrons. And the discovery of canal rays, it eventually led to discovery of proton. Later on, in 1932, J. Chadwick discovered neutrons. Electron is shown by the letter E, proton by P and neutron by N. Electron carries -1 charge, proton carries +1 charge, and there is 0 charge on neutron. The masses of neutron and proton are 1 unit, and electron has negligible mass, so it is shown as 0. Thomson's model of atom. Now, J.J. Thomson, he proposed his own model of atom. He said that the atom is like a Christmas pudding, in which there is a positive sphere and negatively charged electrons, they are embedded in this sphere, the way it happens in a pudding, or in the Indian context we can compare it with uttapam, in which the whole circle is the positively charged sphere and the toppings they are like negatively charged electrons. You can also compare it with the pizza, the base is positively charged sphere and the toppings they are like negatively charged electrons. It is similar to watermelon also. So the whole watermelon, let us compare it with the positively charged sphere, and the seeds they are similar to negatively charged electrons. So Thomson's model, it was able to explain the electrically neutral nature of atom, but it was unable to explain the results of many other experiments which many scientists conducted. Okay, so now after that, what happened? Rutherford, he conducted an experiment, and his experiment is known as the alpha particle scattering experiment. Rutherford took a thin foil of gold. Gold was selected because the thinnest possible foil can be made from gold. Okay, so it was around 200 atoms thick, and he bombarded the gold foil with alpha particles. Alpha particles are positively charged, so whenever a positively charged particle will go near a positively charged object, it will be deflected, or it will face distraction from the positively charged object. So this was the basis of experiment conducted by Rutherford. So Rutherford was hoping for maybe a negligible number of alpha particles getting bounced back or getting deflected, but he was astonished by whatever he observed. So what happened? Most of the alpha particles, they passed straight through the gold foil without a deflection. Some of the alpha particles, they experience some degree of deflection, the way it is shown here, and a very small amount of alpha particles, they got rebound and they turned back on their original path. Okay, so you can compare it with a game. Let us say there is a railing, okay, which has iron rods in the railing, and you are asked to hit the railing with balls. Now the condition is that you are blindfolded. So since there are gaps in between the rods, so chances are that most of the balls you will throw, they will pass straight away through the railing, and a very small amount of ball has the likelihood of hitting one of the bars of the railing and get bounced back because it hits the bar of the railing. So similar thing happened in this experiment. Based on his observation, Rutherford came with certain conclusions. So he said that there is a positively charged center in atom, and this positively charged center is called nucleus. Nearly all the mass of an atom is in nucleus. Nucleus is very small in size compared to atom, and electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths. So by doing this experiment, Rutherford could correctly explain the model of atom in which the nucleus is in the center and electrons, they keep moving around the nucleus. But there was one drawback of Rutherford's model. So as per the laws of physics, whenever an object moves on circular path, it accelerates, and because of acceleration it radiates energy or loses energy. So electrons, since they are moving on circular paths, so they will keep on losing energy, and a time will come when, because of the loss of total energy, the electrons they will collapse in the nucleus, and this will result in destruction of atom. But in nature, atoms are highly stable, they are not unstable the way this theory shows. So Rutherford's model was unable to explain why do atoms remain stable in spite of electrons moving on circular paths. The answer to this question came from another scientist named Niels Bohr. Niels Bohr said that only certain orbits are allowed in atoms, and these orbits are called discrete orbits, and electrons, they move in discrete orbits, and while moving in these discrete orbits, electrons, they do not lose energy. So Niels Bohr named these orbits as K, L, M, N, and so on and so forth, with K being the innermost orbit. We can also name them as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So these are called orbits or shells or energy levels. Distribution of electrons. So let us see how do electrons get distributed in their discrete orbits. So the number one concept is that maximum number of electrons in a shell is given by the formula 2n square, where n is the number of shell. So for the first shell, that is n is equal to 1, the maximum number of electrons will be 2 multiplied by 1 square is equal to 2. For second cell, it will be 2 into 2 square is equal to 8. For third shell, it will be 2 multiplied by 3 square is equal to 18. For fourth cell, it will be 2 multiplied by 4 square is equal to 32, and you can calculate accordingly for higher number of shells. But the maximum number in the outermost shell will be 8. It cannot be more than 8. And a third condition is, unless inner shells are filled, electrons cannot be accommodated in a shell. So let us try to understand this with the help of this model. So this diagram, it shows the atom of argon. So there are 3 shells in an atom of argon. The first shell, it contains 2 electrons as shown by this formula. The second shell, it contains 8 electrons as shown by this formula. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But the third shell, it also contains 8 electrons instead of containing 18 electrons, because this is the outermost shell and the maximum number of permissible electrons in outermost shell is 8. Okay. Now let us talk about valency. The combining capacity of an element is called valency. To understand this, you need to understand the concept of noble gases. Noble gases are elements which have 8 electrons in outermost shell. So they have fully filled outermost shell. Helium has 2 electrons, and apart from that, remaining noble gases, they have 8 electrons in outermost shell. So since they have fully filled outermost shell, so they do not make compounds with another element, and they have 0 valency. Other elements, they try to attain noble gas configuration in order to gain stability, and that is why they try to make compounds, and this can be done by either losing electrons or gaining electrons. So let us see these examples. This is the atom of sodium. It has 1 electron in the outermost shell. So sodium can easily lose 1 electron, so that there will be 8 electrons in the remaining outermost shell. Magnesium has 2 electrons in the outermost shell, so it will lose 2 electrons to make a compound. Now this is the example of chlorine. There are 7 electrons in the outermost shell of chlorine. So for chlorine, it is easier to gain 1 electron rather than giving up 7 electrons, because transfer of 7 electrons, it will require more energy compared to transfer of 1 electron. So chlorine gains 1 electron to make a bond, to make a compound. So elements, they lose electron or gain electron or share electron in order to attain the configuration of a noble gas, and that is how they combine with other elements or similar elements to make molecules of same element or molecules of compounds. Atomic number. The number of protons in an atom of an element is called atomic number of that element. Atomic number is shown by the letter Z. The mass number is equal to number of protons plus number of neutrons, because electron has 0 mass, but protons and neutrons, they have 1 unit mass each, and mass number is shown by letter A. While writing the mass number and atomic number along with symbol of an element, mass number is written as superscript and atomic number is written as subscript, and they are written on the right hand side of the symbol. So say this is a symbol X, so this is the mass number and this is the atomic number. These are some examples. For nitrogen, atomic number is 7, mass number is 14. For carbon, atomic number is 6, mass number is 12. For oxygen, atomic number is 8 and mass number is 16. Isotopes. Elements with same atomic number but different atomic mass number, they are called isotopes. Here are some examples. These are the isotopes of hydrogen: protium, deuterium, tritium. Atomic number of all the isotopes is 1, but mass number of protium is 1, that of deuterium is 2, and mass number of tritium is 3. These are isotopes of chlorine. Atomic number for both the isotopes is 17, mass number of this isotope is 35, and mass number of this isotope is 37. So what is the significance of isotopes? In fact, different isotopes, they are found in different ratio in nature. So in case of chlorine, the isotope with 35 mass number and that with 37 mass number, they are in the ratio of 3:1 in nature. So average atomic mass of chlorine can be calculated as 35 multiplied by 75 upon 100, or 3 upon 4, plus 37 into 25 upon 100, or 1 upon 4. So it is equal to 142 upon 4 is equal to 35.5 unit. This does not mean that every atom of chlorine will have a mass of 35.5 unit. It means that in a given sample, some of the atoms of chlorine will have 35 as mass number, and remaining atoms, they will have 37 mass number. But when the mass of the whole sample is taken, then the average atomic mass of an atom will be 35.5 unit. Isotopes, they have same chemical properties, but some of them can have different physical properties. Now let us talk about isobars. Elements with different atomic numbers but same mass number, they are called isobars. So here are some examples. The mass number of calcium is 40 and mass number of argon is 40. So it is same in both the cases, but atomic number of calcium is 20 and atomic number of argon is 18. So in case of isobars, they have different chemical properties because they are different elements altogether. Calcium is a different element, argon is a different element. Okay, so let us recapitulate. I talked about the subatomic particles which constitute an atom. Then I talked about Thomson's model of atom. I talked about Rutherford's alpha particle scattering experiment. Then I talked about Niels Bohr model of atom. After that, I talked about distribution of electrons in discrete orbits. Then I talked about valency of elements, and finally I talked about isotopes and isobars. That's all for this lesson. Thank you.